We introduce a new segment on today's show. We grade Patrick wisdom and some news and notes from the Fall League and free agency. That's all ahead on this edition of Locked on Cubs. Let's go.
Locked on Cubs, your daily Chicago Cubs podcast. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked on Cubs. Pleased to be with you for a Thursday episode. And as always, alongside Sam Olber, I'm Matt Caissie. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. We're lifelong fans taking our passion into a discussion with you on all things Cubs. Very excited to introduce a new segment on the program today. And for that, we turn it over to Sam.
First of all, Matt, thanks for having me on. Apologies, by the way, to our YouTube listeners. I meant to get the Ace Hardware today to replace a light bulb over me. I haven't done it, so I'm a tad darker than I'd like to be. But that'll get fixed.
Thank you for those details.
Yeah. So new segment today.
Very excited about this.
Yeah. We're gonna call it 0 to 100. Okay, 0 to 100. It's going to be a reoccurring segment on the program. And what I'm going to do is and I have about 5 of these listed here, I'm going to list out some scenarios, some what ifs, some possibilities, some maybe future projections, and we are going to rate them 0 to 100% certainty of happening. Please feel free to join along in the comments at home, and let's get started. I feel like a game show.
Wow, yeah. Very good. I'm a little nervous. Go ahead.
Yeah, you should be, especially with that polo. 0 to 100, Matthew Caissie.
Right.
Rate the likelihood of right fielder Japanese import Seiya Suzuki being a part of the July Classic, the Summer Classic, the All-Star Game next season. And here's the kicker. Assuming health. So let's say you're going to say 50%. But a big part of that is because you don't think he's going to stay healthy. I'm saying forget that. Assuming he's healthy, the likelihood that he's an all-star next year.
Yeah, I think with most of these, I'll try to stay away from 50 and just try to talk my way through.
Well, I was just doing a hypothetical. Good. Oh, yeah. I know you're not going to say 50-50. What is this, the deli?
Right. So Seiya Suzuki, wow, that's a very exciting thought. Have not considered him to be in the Midsummer Classic.
That's what they call it. That's right.
He would be a great addition to the All-Star game if he performs well in April and May and some of June as the voting takes place. Had a good year this year. We graded him last week. Check out that episode. But to be an All-Star, you'd really have to take a big step. As of right now, I would say 25%.
Okay, so let me just say this, and we haven't talked about this before the show. You know I love you like a brother, right?
Right.
And
no, I do.
I really do. And
what would you like me to – I feel like I'm going to be coached here.
Yeah, and I appreciate you having me on the program.
Yeah, thanks for being on.
Yeah. Can you just get to the answer a bit quicker? I got a lot of these. Okay.
You know what I mean? We don't you have a lot. How many do you have?
I had 5. But,
okay. So let's. All right. That's fine.
No,
that's fine.
Let's go. Give me a percentage and a quick 2-3 sentences would be great.
Sure.
You know what I mean? We're not reading the Gettysburg Address here. Okay. I'm just messing around. Okay. You say 25%. Excuse me. Oh, there he is. Okay. 25%. That's really low to me, but it makes sense because you don't like Suzuki.
No, that's not true. Don't put that out in the airwaves.
Oh, all right.
I need to see more.
To me, if you're saying he stays healthy, you want to know what my number is?
I think it's going to be 70.
70%.
Wow, I guess right.
I really believe in this young man's talent.
I know you do.
If he is healthy, and I'll be the first one to come up here in early July and say I was dead wrong. All right, mark that down, folks. 25% from the Italian and 70% for me. Okay. Seiya Suzuki, all-star. Good. Number 2, same question, Nico Horner.
40%, a little bit closer to half and half. I do think he's going to be playing second base.
Right.
Which could actually up his chances now that I'm speaking it into existence.
Right. That's my thought.
So I'm going to up my answer actually just on the other side of 50 to 60%.
And so I had
still within 10, but that's going to be 6-0.
So I had 55% chance. And the reason why is because I think he's going to be playing second base, which is a lesser competitive market. Now we're talking about competing with Jeff McNeil, who I think, Nico Horner is really similar with. Now that I'm saying it out loud, I think 55 might be a little low. I'm just a tad bit concerned at the finish of the season. He needs to hit for a high average. So,
and I think he's going to come off the gate strong with a high average.
I hope you're right.
Yeah.
So
that's
right.
60 for me.
Okay. So 60 for Matt, 55 for Olber. Let's see. Let's go to number 3 here.
Very nice.
Now it gets fun here. Okay. Now it gets Now it gets fun. Okay. 0 to 100. The Chicago Cubs at some point this offseason or midseason will trade for Angels DH and pitcher Shohei Ohtani.
Between what frames of time?
So anytime between this offseason and the next trade deadline.
I'm going to say 10%.
Yeah.
I don't think the Angels are gonna move their superstar player this offseason. I think the chances, so I think it's basically 0 for this winter.
Yeah.
The chances go up slightly as the season moves along. We'll see how the Angels do. He is a free agent after 23. If you don't anticipate an extension, you have to trade him. So I do think there is a slight chance, but the more and more that I've been thinking about it since the possibility rose, a month or 2 ago, and we did an episode on it, I think it's very low. I don't think it's, 0 or 1, but I am going to say a tick above at 10%.
I'm going to say 7.5%. I agree with everything you said. All right, but it's fun. It's fun to sample.
I mean, the Cubs could trade for him. That's the thing.
Oh, they could do it right now if they wanted to.
It would be a big cost.
It's just they're not in that time frame yet. Mm-hmm. I got 2 more, Matt.
Yeah. Plenty of time.
It's fun stuff, folks. 0. This is kind of an easier one, but I'm just curious to hear your answer because I haven't heard much about this. And this guy posted kind of a cool video on social media yesterday. 0 to 100.
We got to get graphics for this.
Ian Happ is your starting left fielder on March 30th.
80.
Yeah, I was going to say 85.
80% chance. I think there is a possibility that there's a good trade partner in which you get a cost-controlled pitcher, starting pitcher that has a lot of value and is a good player that can impact your rotation right away. But I also think that he's firmly in place in left field otherwise. So that's how I came up with 80.
I actually have 2 more written down.
Great.
This one's gonna ruffle.
Would you trade Ian Happ straight up for Shane Bieber?
Straight up, sure.
Wow.
I don't think Cleveland would do that.
Oh, okay.
0 to 100 that David Ross is the manager at this time next year.
Whoa. Now this is, in the words of Sam Olber, intriguing.
So do you want me to, before you get into it, explain why I wrote this down?
Yeah.
If the Cubs aren't elite, if the Cubs don't make the playoffs next year or aren't at least very close, or maybe there's a scenario where they just get crushed by injuries. But let's say next year they finish 81 and 81, it all goes well, I think he's fired. Mm-hmm. I think this is his time. I think this is David Ross's year to prove to doubters like myself and to prove to the rest of the league that he is a legitimate manager that can get the very best out of his team. Now, some would argue that last year he did get the very best out of his team, especially in the second half. No arguments here. But that's a lot different than getting the very best out of your team when the very best out of your team means going to October and going to the dance. So And especially with what we've talked about on this show, the pitching flexibility, the guys that are going to come out of the bullpen and pitch more than, 2 innings, and how to use those guys and keep other guys fresh, and the defensive alignment. There's a lot on his plate this year, and if it doesn't go well, that's going to be the next scapegoat.
So David Ross is only signed through 2024.
Don't worry about his deal. You
don't think that impacts a decision for them?
If the Cubs feel like that, if Jed Hoyer feels like this team wins 81 games next year, and the reason why they didn't win 90 is the manager, they'll buy him out and get somebody.
I'm going to say 33%.
33%. No,
third.
Wait, did I say what are the chances he's not the manager? That's what I said, right?
Yes.
Okay. 33%. Yeah, I said 25. I think the Cubs are going to be good next year. That's my reasoning.
Okay.
I think but I asked the question because I don't think people realize this. If you look up next year and they start out, let's say 12-19 or something, you're going to start to hear rumblings.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Because I promise you this, hand to God, Jed Hoyer is not going to put out a team next year that he doesn't internally believe can make the postseason. He's not, because they can't afford it. They have to have a good team. Now, they don't have to have a great team, but they have to have a team. And I've said this a lot on this show before. I believe Jed Hoyer thought last year's team was better than it actually performed throughout most of the year. I've said that.
Right.
It probably wasn't. And part of that's because he signed Jonathan Villar and Andrelton Simmons. So he's not excused of the blame. But I'm just saying, I think internally, Jed thought that they could have done a better job early. Last one. We went a little bit long here.
That's okay.
0 to 100, in your opinion, the Cubs are playing postseason baseball in the 2023 Major League Baseball season.
Wow, that's one that gets my blood flowing and gets a little bit of goosebumps as well.
Yeah,
I'm gonna stay with kind of the fraction element here and say 75.
Whoa. I had 54%.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's more likely than not. 75.
That's high, yeah.
Hey, drinks at Matt's tonight, folks. 324 West Berlin Street.
Come on over. Come on over. I'm glad you used the fake address.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know your real address.
0 to 100 was fantastic. Please let us know down below on the video side what your thoughts on those questions are. Coming up next, we enter the classroom for Patrick Wisdom. Today's episode is brought to you by Roan. Have you noticed the pains of dress shirts nowadays? What about the hassle of changing clothes for different activities? Why hasn't there been a dress shirt that just makes you feel good? Well, now there is. The dress shirt was due for a radical reinvention, and Roan stepped up to the challenge. Roan's commuter shirt is the most comfortable, breathable, and flexible shirt known to man, and here's why. Roan's comfortable four-way stretch fabric provides breathability and flexibility that leaves you free to enjoy what life throws your way, from your commute to work to your 18 holes of golf. It's time to feel confident with the wrinkle-free shirt without the hassle. And with Roan's wrinkle release technology, wrinkles disappear as you stretch and wear the shirt. It's that easy. With Gold Fusion anti-odor technology as well, you'll be smelling fresh and clean all day long. And it's 100% machine washable, so you can ditch the dry cleaner altogether. The commuter shirt can get you through any workday and straight into whatever comes next. Head to roan.com/lockedon and use the promo code LOCKEDON to save 20% off your entire order. That's 20% off your entire order when you head to RHONE.com/lockedon and use the code LOCKEDON. It's time to find your corner office comfort. We're back here on Locked On Cubs. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. Patrick Wisdom just completed his second season, or actually technically his third season with the Cubs, but second full season. He had a blink of an eye, plate appearances in 2020. But Patrick Wisdom is a player entering the 2021 season that nobody knew. And as a person, he's taken advantage of his ability, his opportunity from being nowhere to playing a lot for the Cubs as now a 31-year-old infielder.
Right.
He slashed this year 207, 298, 426, 25 home runs, 28 doubles, and he led the sport with a 34.3 strikeout percentage. Third base was much better in 21 than 22. We'll unpack a lot of elements of this and some forward-thinking pieces as well, Sam, but I'm going to give Patrick Wisdom a C.
So, funny you mentioned the C. When we decided that we were going to talk about Wisdom today, in my head, I had C+ in my head, okay. But I didn't do any digging. I didn't do any research. When I saw that slash line and that strikeout rate combined with the play at third base, I got to say it's a C- for me.
Okay.
The only reason I didn't go lower is because after that series, before that series in Colorado, remember he opened the year, the Cubs played 3 against Milwaukee, 2 in Pittsburgh, and he looked lost. And many people, including myself, were like, he's not going to be on this team come next week. And then he kind of salvaged his season and got hot and became a contributor. So I give him credit for that. He's still a major league player, and his power is unique. But yikes, a 298 on base with that much strikeout, and then add in the fact that he was a below-average defensive third baseman, I'm okay giving him a shot. If you go out and get a Correa, you go out and get all these guys, and third base is where you leave it open, and you want to give him the opening day shot because I think he's kind of fun as a 7 or 8 hitter that could ambush people and hit 30 home runs in that hole. But man, I thought for whatever reason in my slash line, I thought he was like 228, 230 with an on base at like 320 and a slug in the 450, 460 like that. I didn't realize it was that bad. And that's bad for somebody like him. So I'm going to say C-. Where could he improve defensively? For him to make sense and play 130 games next year at third base, he has to be good at third. He has to make the team better at third base. He can't just be, he's serviceable. He has to be good. It's in there, but it has to be. And the strikeouts, asking him to cut those down doesn't make sense because it's not a part of his game. But if he's going to hit 7th or 8th, draw enough walks to where you're serviceable when you go on a little home run drought, and 30 home runs is the bare minimum. Now this year, how many games did he play? 134, and he hit 25. So over a 62 game pace, that's well over 30. If you're going to play 134 next year, though, I need to see 30 plus home runs if you're going to strike out at the rate that he does.
Wisdom's power tool is really what he has for him right now. And I guess in a way it quells a lot of the issues with him as a Major League Baseball player. You know, the defense was definitely a striking concern. It was average at best.
At best.
At times it was putrid.
Right. Maybe learn from VR.
You're still trying to improve the roster. But he's making only 700, 800K. I think right now, excluding health or that he's not here at all, obviously, if he's traded or something, I think he is practically a lock for the roster in 2023. But he's a bench piece or a role player, or when you do start him, he bats automatically in the lower third, and 25 plus home runs from a 7 or 8 or 9 spot in the order is pretty wild. But he is one-dimensional, and that's what I view him as him right now. I'm not sure with possible additions, but I do think there is a role for him on this club.
Well, and it's interesting because the other day we said some similar things about Morel, and I think they're going to be battling for that third base spot.
Very similar.
I think I'm okay with filling center field with JBJ, Kiermaier, or Bellinger, filling first base with Mervis Abreu /DH, filling the middle infield spots with Horner and Correa, Suzuki and right, Happ and left. Maybe you trade for a catcher, maybe it's Gomes. If they decide third's the place they want to leave open and let Morel and Wisdom battle it out for that job, I'm fine with that because Wisdom's a nice safety net, right? Morel has the upside where it's like, well, if he puts it all together and learns how to play over there, he could be pretty good. And Wisdom's like the guy where it's like, okay, we know exactly what we're going to get from Wisdom.
Two different profiles. Baseball is having some nice shifts right now with just gameplay and what's coming back and what's, center of the sport. In the 2022 MLB, power is such a valuable thing, but I also think Morel's skill set could help.
Yeah, and you mentioned Wisdom as a bench piece.
That's a hard one.
Wisdom as a bench piece, down too late, left-handers on the mound, guy on first, 2 outs, 9th inning. It's a nice guy to bring to the dish. He makes a mistake, you hit the ball in a waveland, you play extras.
Yeah, that is pretty intriguing. Coming up next, we're going to highlight Owen Caissie. He's on a hot tear right now in the AFL. And then a possible reunion with a former first baseman. Stick around. We're back here on Locked On Cubs.
We're not talking about Rizzo again, are we?
Thanks for making us your first listen every day. We are going to briefly bring up Anthony Rizzo. Let's do that right now, Sam, as we segue into this. So,
Matt Mervis hit his 5th homer of the Arizona Fall League today.
I think he just hit one, right?
It's likely in my backyard.
That would be a nice addition to your yard.
Yeah, well, it would be the only.
Rizzo is likely to decline his 2023 option for 16 M's with the New York Yankees. Mm-hmm. With Mervis on the rise and on the brink of making the opening day roster and the Cubs wanting more flexibility, I think if we're doing 0 to 100, I think there's a 1% chance that a reunion happens because I'm not probably going to rate anything 0 ever. But, or I should say, in addition to that, in terms of the flexibility conversation, if you sign Rizzo, then Rizzo's the first baseman. You're not doing any of this, okay, Mervis at first, Abreu at DH. And then they rotate the next day. And then Wisdom plays first one day or DH is. And you can't do both Rizzo and Mervis because they both hit left-handed. We need to stop this conversation immediately. Put up the stop sign.
So you said you'll never do 0%.
Probably not.
0 to 100. What are the odds that Jonathan Villar is your opening day third baseman next year?
Oh, you're right. Okay, 0.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, good. Yeah. I'm glad you called me out on that right away.
What are the odds that Anthony Rizzo wants to come back here? Has anyone thought of that?
Yeah. Great conversation piece. He doesn't want to come back here.
I think he feels. I think out of
he feels slighted.
I think out of Bryant, Baez, and him, not counting Contreras, I think Rizzo's the one that probably feels the most disrespected by. And Joe Madden came out the other day and said that he felt Rizzo was the most disrespected. He felt Rizzo was the one guy they should have kept. So
and I don't know if that's true, by the way. I don't know if he was disrespected.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm tired of trying to figure it out.
So.
Yeah, I don't care. I don't think Rizzo wants to come back here. I think Yankee Stadium is perfect for him as he ages. Because
agree.
He could hit a lot of home runs there that wouldn't be home runs elsewhere. He's got a good team around him. It seems like him and Judge get along really well. Rizzo belongs in a big market. And he had to give him credit. He was I think he might have been their best hitter in the playoffs.
Right.
I think he stays in New York, maybe just for a higher price.
And finally, Owen Caissie, the headline return of the Darvish trade, a player with a high ceiling, hitting well in the Arizona Fall League as the 20-year-old outfielder has brought his OPS up to 788, his batting average to 278. This is a player that I'm excited to see what he does moving forward. He'll begin the season at Double-A Tennessee after playing all year in High-A South Bend in 22. So he's not on the cusp, but he's getting closer.
And another guy that the better he hits, the more likely the better asset that he becomes. Whether he sticks in the big leagues and makes it here, or the Cubs start out 35-19 next year, and by the deadline he's a headliner in a trade that brings you a stud. Right? Got to always think about it in two perspectives. It's not just about him getting here; it's about him helping the organization win a World Series. Guess who played a huge part in winning the Cubs the World Series? Gleyber Torres.
Wow.
Right? Didn't he?
Yes.
And he didn't play 1 second for the Chicago Cubs, but signing him allowed the Cubs to get Aroldis Chapman. Without Aroldis Chapman, there's no jewelry. Voila. Assets, assets, assets.
On Friday and for the rest of our offseason days, there's going to be more player grades, future transaction chatter, a whole lot more. Certainly some new segments as well. And be sure you stay with us. Subscribe on YouTube, smash the like button, leave a comment, drop us a text, 312-834-4634. We would love to hear from you and get involved here on the program. Thanks for making Locked On. Oh,
yeah, and off the air, we have to discuss recording time because tomorrow at 9:30 Central, I'll be playing in the softball playoffs.
Oh, we're excited to get an update from you. I guess that would be on Monday's show.
Yes.
Thanks for making Locked On Cubs your first listen every day. Now make your second the Locked On Sports Today podcast. Locked On Sports Today is our 22-minute recap of the previous night in sports. It features local experts on each of the big stories, as well as the take of the day from one of the Locked On hosts. Really fun Thursday show for you right there. We'll be with you again on Friday, wherever and whenever you may be listening. For Sam Olber, I'm Matt Caissie. This is Locked On Cubs.